knows which lawyer you should choose. Other lawyers know. They've invited Gary C. Johnson to teach his method of judo law in Denver, Atlanta, New Orleans, and across the nation. Gary used judo law to set the record for the largest personal injury verdict in the history of Kentucky. Now, which lawyer should you choose? The choice is clear. Gary C. Johnson. This is an advertisement.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson tries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt. Hello, my dear friend Gary Johnson.
Hallelujah. We made it another week, guys and gals. Isn't it wonderful? Hoo, 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 hoo. And we're all happy. You all know how important you are. I'm going to get the statistics on how many stars they are in the universe. And I'm going to tell you folks what they are once I look them up, okay? I suspect there's more stars in the universe than there are people on Earth. If they are, then you guys ought to know just how real important you are. Because they haven't found any proof of any kind whatsoever that there's any life in the universe other than you. Any intelligent life. But they did have a theory, though, that came out the other day, so I'm going to pass it on to you, that we'll never find any intelligent life in the universe because intelligent life usually kills itself off.
So, great point. If there's trillions, and I would imagine there are trillions of stars, this is the only one that's got people who can walk, talk, think, turn on the channel, and watch this show.
So you don't know what's out there, but it's so big that I always wondered, well, how can God keep up with all that number of people? And then I got to looking around, and if you've got 1 trillion stars in the universe, it'd be pretty easy to keep up with 8 or 9 billion people, right?
It's not that big of a deal.
It's not that big of a deal.
So you're just like one little grain of sand on a whole big beach. Mm-hmm. So you're pulling up the little grain of sand and saying, hey, there's Earth, and I've got a couple of billion people down there. No big deal.
Yeah, I mean, so how you guys been doing? Did you watch a show on happiness? I hope you did. Social intelligence, realize that you're probably pretty smart after all. I want to shout out to Carolyn Skeens if she's watching. She sent me a real nice little notice that she had watched the show on happiness and that it was uplifting for her. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for letting me know, because now I know that Keith and I actually was able maybe to touch one person, which is our goal. If we can touch just one in a show, then we feel like we have been a real success. Right, Keith?
You know, Gary, that is the most satisfying thing in the world. Not that you or I did something to change someone's life. It's the fact that they took the information you gave, they thought about it, they put all that information into their computer, and then they came up with the answer that they could control their happiness, and they changed their life. To empower somebody like that has to make you feel good.
You have to understand, and Carolyn knows, it's not easy.
Oh, Lord, no.
It's not. It takes time, and it takes effort. But if you spend the time and the effort and continuously look forward toward happiness, you'll find it. Just try to control the negativity that's in your mind because it's there. And again, the little trick, when that negativity comes up and starts putting you down, write it out and read it. And you'll see just how stupid it is that thought that's in your brain is.
Let me tell you what else you're doing. You're empowering people around you. The other day at the office, I was with the computer, and you know my computer skills. So I got aggravated, and I was being the normal little human being that human beings are when they get aggravated. And the lady who runs the office stepped in and said, "Is that the same Keith that's on the Gary show? Because you're not supposed to be getting upset over that computer." And I thought, you are absolutely right. Thank you for calling me down.
You got to wonder about people that get in fights with inanimate objects, right?
Oh, I did. Did I give that computer a piece of my mind? To which it just sat there, and I'm sure it was laughing inside, you know.
If it had the intelligence, well, the computer knew better.
It is ridiculous after you catch yourself.
I want to talk to you about something for just a minute that I've noticed over the last few years has become a real serious problem, and it is medical records. Your medical records may or may not be accurate. More likely than not, you will be appalled if you get a copy of your records. It's all come down to a computer now. You go in and they give you a diagnosis, say heart. Then the computer picks up the heart algorithm, puts your symptoms in, whether you give them to them or not. Unless you give a specific symptom, the computer will fill one in for you. Now think about that. Now, you're in for a heart problem, and somebody says, well, we better check their kidneys. You call in a kidney doctor. Kidney doctor comes in, gets on the computer, shows he's the kidney doctor. All your stuff changes to the symptoms of kidneys, and your heart stuff is off into the never land, maybe.
So you're saying because another test was done, precautionary, now all of a sudden you've got a history that has changed.
It may very well have changed. Now let me tell you just how bad it is out there in people taking proper histories from people. Got a client that was driving down the road, and suddenly a truck, work truck, just like that, pulled directly in front of him. He didn't even have time to hit his brake. Slammed into it, okay? That's what happened. There were witnesses. No question, that's what happened. No dispute from anybody, that's what happened. He's in rehab in a facility in Lexington. Get their medical records. I want to share this with you. I'm not going to use his name. This is what they wrote in the medical record in Lexington that happened in that wreck. I'm going to read it to you. He was a restrained front seat passenger. He was the driver, okay? Driving approximately 60 miles per hour when he ran a stop sign and was T-boned by a semi. Has nothing to do with him. It's on telling whose record they pasted in there.
So it has nothing to do with the accident that actually took place?
No, nothing. Zero. But yet somebody on a computer from some other wreck that they probably had in that same facility pasted a history in for him.
Gary, what happens now that this is in writing? I mean, how damning is this to the client that there is a document stating something completely different?
If we didn't have all of the police reports and the witnesses and even the guy that hit him admitting what happened. With this record, my client would be ruined. And it's not even vaguely resembles what happened. Now, folks, if you're assuming that your medical records are accurate, don't. You need to make sure your doctor carefully looks at your medical records, and then maybe you might want to get a hold of them and look at them yourself, because it has become a really, really, really serious problem when they went to electronic records. And guess what the standard of care is? If they make a diagnosis and then that computer tells them what the symptoms are and what to do, and they do that, that's standard of care in the industry anymore. Not that the doctor looked at it and made a decision.
Okay, so fantastic that you had all the information backed up to prove this wrong. But what is the accountability for putting out this false document? Is there any accountability?
Oh, they'll swear he told them that.
So, and this could have completely destroyed the client's life, case.
I know of a situation where a man's case was destroyed. It wasn't my case. It was another lawyer's, because of an inaccurate history that was put in a record about when he actually sustained the injury. They said he fell in that record, when in reality he had been hit by a truck. And that record ruined him because he couldn't prove that they were lying or that they were mistaken.
Now, the other thing...
Wasn't my case, though.
The other thing you stated up front, that this was kind of cut and dry. Even the truck driver admitted to it, everything, but you went ahead and prepared this as if though you were going to go to court with it, to trial. So you gathered all the information. Had another law firm not done that, then this document comes out and they no longer have the evidence.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make to my friends out there is beware of your medical records. Computers have taken over, and computers can't think, and they don't think. Computers just come up with information. Computers are wonderful things to have. But when it was mandated that all medical records be electronic, it was a really bad thing for healthcare in this country. Really bad. That's my opinion, for whatever it's worth, okay?
I think you're spot on. And to any of those of our friends out there that's ever used voice texting, look at that text that gets written after you use voice, because there could be some words in there you didn't say.
Now let's talk a little bit about happiness. After all, it is the New Year's resolution, right? That this year we're going to do everything in our power to be happy. So I want to read, my friends, a little bit more. First, let's go to the computer. There's our number in case any of you need to reach us. We're in Lexington, and we have a facility there. GaryCJohnson.com, if you need to get a hold of us. You can go to the webpage. In general, please, my friends, make sure you have underinsurance that protects you and your family. The Art of Happiness is a book I'm going to read some more from, which I did 2 weeks ago, okay? And there's the people that wrote it. So now let's go back to my book. See, so computers have some purpose, right?
When you're not mean to them and try to argue with them.
Yeah. I'll read you what he had, some more about what these guys had to say about happiness, because I didn't get finished with everything in that first show that I wanted to read to you, okay? So if you folks will bear with me, I'm going to read you some stuff. Every day we are faced with numerous decisions and choices. And try as we may, we often don't choose the thing that we know is good for us. Part of this is related to the fact that the right choice is more often than not the difficult one, the one that involves some sacrifice of our pleasure. In every country, men and women have struggled with trying to define the proper role that pleasure should play in their lives. A legion of philosophers, theologians, and psychologists, all exploring our relationship with pleasure. None of us really need dead Greek philosophers, 19th century psychoanalysts, or 20th century scientists to help us understand pleasure. We know it when we feel it, right? We know it in the touch of a smile or smile of a loved one, in the luxury of a hot bath, on a cold rainy afternoon, in the beauty of a sunset. But many of us also know pleasure in the frenetic rachaudière of a cocaine rush, the ecstasy of a heroin high, the revelry of an alcoholic buzz, the bliss of unstrained sexual excess, the exhilaration of a winning streak in Vegas. These are also very real pleasures, pleasures that many in our society must come to terms with. Although there are so many, no easy solutions to avoiding these destructive pleasures, fortunately, we have a place to begin. The simple reminder that what we are seeking in life is happiness. As the Dalai Lama points out, that is an unmistakable fact. If we approach our choices in life keeping that in mind, it is easier to give up the things that ultimately are harmful to us, even if those things bring us momentary pleasure. The reason why it is usually so difficult to just say no is found in the word no. That approach is associated with a sense of rejecting something, of giving something up, of denying ourselves. But there is a better approach. Framing any decision we face by asking yourself, will it bring us happiness? The simple question can be a powerful tool in helping us skillfully conduct all areas of our lives, not just in the decision whether to indulge in drugs or that third piece of a banana pie. It puts us a new slant on things. Approaching our daily decisions and choices with this question in mind shifts the focus from what we are denying ourselves to what we are seeking, ultimate happiness. A state of happiness that remains despite life's ups and downs and normal fluctuations of mood as part of the very matrix of our being. With this perspective, it's easier to make the right decision because we are acting to give ourselves something, not denying or withholding something from ourselves. An attitude of moving toward rather than moving away, an attitude of embracing life rather than rejecting it. This underlying sense of moving toward happiness can have a very profound effect. It makes us more receptive, more open to the joy of living.
You know, I think from what you just read, that's one of the most genius things that I've heard, because we have continually said, I've got to deny myself. I've got to say no. Oh, it's so hard to turn down this pleasure. And yet the author of the book is saying, you don't have to say no. You can say yes to happiness. You can go a step above pleasure, and you can sit there and think and say, yes, this act of the third piece of banana pie would be pleasure, but if I choose not to have it, I can be happy because I won't have the weight gain.
I will be happy when I get on the scales tonight. So yes. I'm going to trade this happiness, little bit of pleasure, for the happiness of being skinny when I get on the scales tonight. And that's what he's saying. Just reframe it such that you're not denying yourself, but you're actually enabling yourself to go forward toward happiness. And I thought it was ingenious. That's why I wanted to share it with you folks.
It really is, because you went from punishing yourself to rewarding yourself. You're saying, I would actually like to be happier than just this pleasure. And you also pointed out the difference between a pleasure and true happiness. There's a lot of pleasures in life that can bring us a lot of grief.
More so than you can imagine. May I read you a little bit more of this, because he's got some interesting stuff, my friends. Training the Mind for Happiness is the chapter. In identifying one's mental state as the prime factor in achieving happiness, of course, that doesn't deny that our basic physical needs for food, clothing, and shelter must be met. But once these basic needs are met, the message is clear. We don't need more money. We don't need greater success or fame. We don't need the perfect body. We'd like to have it though, wouldn't we? Or even the perfect mate. Right now, at this very moment, we have a mind which is all the basic equipment we need to achieve complete happiness. What do you think of that, Keith?
Well, you know, again, the thing that I like about this is you ask us to think. And when you really start thinking about it, and unfortunately, normally we don't until we're losing some of that, or we have an illness, or we're in the hospital, or we've lost a loved one. Then all of a sudden we come to this conclusion that you just read us. But you're saying to us, we can come to that conclusion today without a tragedy in our life.
It's our choice. I'm going to read you a little bit more about what he has to say about it, because I thought this guy's smart. So the first step in seeking happiness is learning. We first have to learn how negative emotions and behaviors are harmful to us and how positive emotions are helpful. And we must realize how these negative emotions are not only very bad and harmful to one personally, but harmful to society and the future of the whole world as well. That kind of realization enhances our determination to face and overcome them. And then there's the realization of the beneficial aspects of the positive emotions and behaviors. Once we realize that, we become determined to cherish, develop, and increase those positive emotions, no matter how difficult that is. There is a kind of spontaneous willingness from within. So through this process of learning, of analyzing which thoughts and emotions are beneficial and which are harmful, we gradually develop a firm determination to change, feeling. Now the secret to my own happiness, my own good future, is within my own hands. I must not miss this opportunity.
I love that chapter. And you know, I've had people that's watched this program and listened to the radio program say, I love everything that Gary's saying, but I've got negative people around me. If I've got this chapter right, and please tell me if I'm on the right track, if you make the change and what's coming out of you is positive and happiness, that negativity around you is going to go away, because negativity wants a partner. They want someone to join. And when you don't join in and you're happy, they'll go elsewhere.
Misery loves company.
Yes.
And if you're not willing to be miserable, the misery will go somewhere else. It'll either leave that person or they'll leave you and get away from you.
They'll say, something's wrong with Joe over here. He just doesn't get it. I'm going to have to go over here and talk all this negativity to Billy. You're absolutely right. It will disappear.
I'll read you another paragraph here. This is also the case with mental states and experiences. If you desire happiness, you should seek the causes that give rise to it. And if you don't desire suffering, then what you should do is ensure that the causes and conditions that would give rise to it no longer arise. An appreciation of this causal principle is very important. Our next task, therefore, is to examine the variety of mental states that we experience. We need to clearly identify different mental states and to make a distinction, classifying them according to whether or not they lead to happiness.
You know, we talked about some of these things on the radio program the other day, and after we do the program, I always label the show with a title, and I labeled the show, It's Your Choice, because in listening to this information that you have given us, ultimately, it comes back upon us.
I want to read one more thing before we run out of time. Now, for instance, hatred, jealousy, anger, and so on are harmful. We consider them negative states of mind because they destroy our mental happiness. Once you harbor feelings of hatred or ill feelings toward someone, once you yourself are filled by hatred or negative emotions, then other people appear to you as also hostile. So as a result, there is more fear, greater inhibition and hesitation, and a sense of insecurity. These things develop, and also loneliness in the midst of a world perceived as hostile. All these negative feelings develop because of hatred. On the other hand, Mental states such as kindness and compassion are definitively very positive, and they are very useful. That's enough to read today.
You gotta tell the story before we go off the air about the one gentleman who said, Gary, I listened to you about not carrying a grudge and that you couldn't be happy carrying a grudge, but I've carried one for years and I'm happy.
Well, there may be an exception to everything. I've told the people to turn loose of your grudges, and this guy called me up and he said, Gary, I'm carrying this grudge, and I enjoy carrying this grudge, and it makes me very happy to carry this grudge. So my words to him was, I said, continue carrying the grudge, because the goal is to be happy.
The goal is to be happy, and if it makes you happy and hold on to the grudge, then hold on to the grudge. So there is an exception to everything that you're saying.
Somehow there's an exception to everything in life.
The greatest thing about what you've read from the book is for us to sit down and to think about everything around us, everybody around us, and how we are perceiving it and how we're reacting to it.
And get the negative things out of your life. That's the main thing. Get the negative out of your life. I don't care what you have to do, how long it takes. I don't care how long it takes. You're giving up your dash if you do. Get that negativity away from you. Kick it out the door. Kick it in the rear. I don't care. Kick it when it's down, but get it out of your life.
You've got to say, I'm sorry, I can no longer allow you.
I'm not giving you permission
to take advantage of my happiness and ruin it.
Right. It's mine.
It's a very empowering thing. It may be a little awkward to do it the first time, but I think you'll get better at it as you go along. My friend, thank you. A very good lesson today, the art of happiness. Thank you so much for taking this time to tune in. Gary and I really do appreciate it. And as always, we look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this very same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
Hello, I'm Gary C. Johnson. Lawyers are spending millions of dollars asking you to give them a call. What could I say to you that would make you give us a call? How about the fact I invented the concept of judo law? How about the fact that using judo law, my team set the record for the largest verdict in the state of Kentucky? No other law firm has even come close. How's that for a reason to give us the call?
800-337-4002.
Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia, and Southwest Virginia. It can be a tough territory to reach when it comes to marketing. We can help. We can also help you find your identification. And we have plenty of services to do it and a lot of experience behind us, over 37 years. In fact, we've either booked or sold nearly $70 million in advertising in this region. You need a new voice, a new idea, a new concept? Casebolt Marketing. We're ready to go to work for you today. Our motto is nothing happens until you make it happen. So let's get started today.